In looking through a lot of my vinyl collection recently, I noticed that, over the past year or so, I've actually located and, in certain cases, accumulated a good deal more records that I would put basically in the jazz funk, jazz rock fusion vein. Usually I would mix those up with my funk genre profile, but there's so many that a lot of these just need to stand alone. And these are going to be the first volume of my jazz funk fusion videos from the 70s. This pile of 16 records covers the years from 1972 through 1976. And we'll get to the second half of the 70s in the next volume. And we're going to start out with one of my favorite artists, Mr. Ben Sidran. He had a jazz radio show in Wisconsin, and I remember a 1985 hit from him my father used to play a lot as a child, when I was a child, named Mitsubishi Boy. Interesting artwork. I don't know if you can see it clearly, but Clyde Stubblefield, the funky drummer himself from James Brown's band, is on this, and so is Gavin Christopher, who'd later play with Rufus. There's Bulldog Productions. Bulldog was actually the title of a Ben Sidran album from 1974 I'd love to get a hold of. There's Ben Sidran at that particular time. Eric Gale, one of my favorite session players on Kudu 11, Forecast. This album is from 1973. If I haven't shown it or not, there's the Kudu. This is a promotional album. Usually the Kudu has the red, black, and green tricolors. Next on the list is Realization, Eddie Henderson, also from 1973 on Capricorn Records. There's his band on the back. My father introduced me to Eddie Henderson. Another promotional label for Capricorn, just white. Next up is Larry Coryell. He passed away this year, R.I.P. I actually hadn't heard a lot of his music, before he passed away. And, a lot of people get on others for that. Why don't you get into people before they die? Well, I knew about him. I just hadn't gotten into his music. This is a great album. He always mixes acoustic and electric cuts really, really well. He had his own self-contained band on this album. This is on the Vanguard label, which I'm not sure if I've shown before. It's kind of an iridescent bronze label. 70s Vanguard. Recordings for the Connoisseur. Ronnie Foster. I really, really love this guy's music. He played with Stevie Wonder and George Benson. This is his album On the Avenue on Blue Note, and you've all seen the 70s Blue Note label. This is from 1974. Flora Purim, one of the most unique and distinctive singers I've ever heard from Brazil. Her and her husband Airto worked a lot together, and this is her second album from 1974, Stories to Tell. Airto's on it, young Earl Klug, George Duke, and this is on Milestone. I don't know if I've shown you that label yet. There's the 70s Milestone label. We'll be hearing from Earl Klug in just a little bit. Actually, there's something in here inside the Flora Purim album. It's a lyric sheet. There's Flora singing. The next album is Tom Scott and the L.A. Express, Tomcat. The L.A. Express were a really strong rock rhythm section in the 70s, especially with rock musicians who wanted just a little touch of jazz in their music. Joni Mitchell utilized them a lot on her Court and Spark album. And I love the little jazz cat kind of metaphor on this cover. This is on Old Records. That's the label that Carole King was on. had this design in it. There's the old label at that time. Next up is Harvey Mason, Marching in the Street. This particular album has got a song on it called Modaji, which is a really nice, relaxing funk groove. If you're a fan of the Headhunters, which Harvey Mason was a part of during his salad years, you know, you will really love this album. It's right in that vein. There's Harvey taking a leap of faith. Ursula Dudziak. Remember I mentioned Flora Purim? Well, this is, you know, her continental European equivalent vocally. As a matter of fact, this woman takes sometimes even more obscure turns. This is also on Arista. This is a very interesting album vocally. She does a song on here called Mosquito and Mosquito Dream, where she literally sounds like an insect. It's also a lot of Yoko Ono mixed into this. Like Flora Purim and Yoko Ono is the best way I could describe this album from 1975, like Harvey Mason. This album appears to have been recorded in 1975 and released a year later. This is Patty Austin's debut, End of the Rainbow. Really good and really well-formed debut album from Patty. There's Patty Austin at that time, looking very concerted. Excellent material. It's amazing how fully formed she is. Larry Coryell, The Lion and the Ram, 1976. It's amazing how many albums of these are on Arista. Larry Coryell's promotion. It's just a white promotional Arista label. It's no big deal. Mingo Lewis. This fellow is associated with Return to Forever during the 70s. I picked up his album at a flea market the other day. There's a song on here called Imaginary Monsters, which has a guitar lick that comes very much out of James Brown's I Can't Stand Myself When You Touch Me. You know, that's why I have a problem with all this suing over this and suing over that today. You know, jazz musicians really had to bring that quality into their music, bringing in other riffs and stuff like that. You know, my friend Henry talked about that. You know, this is a great example of that. And it's on a label called Spread Eagle. There's a picture of his band. He's a percussionist, apparently. It's actually just a Columbia label. I don't know what Spread Eagle was all about. Maybe a production company. Chick Corea's The Leprechaun. You know, a couple of people have said he looks a lot like Lionel Richie on this cover for some reason, but it definitely isn't. This is an album that my father had and he got rid of. You know, it's controversial among the Chick Corea fan community. Songs like Imp's Welcome, Night Sprite, and Pixie Land, Rag, Leprechaun, Dreams, you know, Pixies and Imps. You know, this has a very, you know, high-pitched, dingly sound on some of the songs, if I remember it. I gotta get back into this album, you know, from 1976. It's either considered a classic or a really strange thing to come out of the jazz fusion world, but I just wanted a copy of it on something. The 11th House, featuring Larry Coryell. My dad recommended to me to get some stuff by this band. This is a really funky album by him. You know, just really good stuff. Again, on the Arista label. Remember I mentioned Earl Klug a little bit back? Here's his debut album, 70s Blue Note. Already shown you that label. Living Inside Your Love. Some information about that album. And a picture of a young Earl Klug. The last one on the list is Miroslav Vitas, who's from Weather Report. This is definitely on the jazz rock fusion end. Great bass playing on that album. So there's my first collection of jazz, funk, and fusion records in the standalone sense. The second half of the 70s and into the early 80s brought jazz, funk, and fusion into a somewhat different place. You know, it straddled both the disco era and the post-disco era, and I decided in this part of this particular video series to focus on the period from 1977 to 1983. And the reason why I say that is because, after 1984, jazz fusion started to move much more into what I suppose people would call now the smooth jazz category, where it was much more about the external production than about the musicianship and the writing and things like that. So we're going to be covering 34 albums here in this particular part of this set. And here we start out with one of my favorite albums ever, Sergio Mendes and the New Brazil 77. I remember first hearing this album, or a song from it written by Stevie Wonder. Michael Sembello was part of the band, right there, and there's Sergio, called The Real Thing. DJ, now musician, Nigel Hall was playing it on his show at WMEB at the University of Maine around 2004. And I eventually got this CD, but it's been displaced so many times. I'm just really happy to have it on vinyl. There's some internal pictures that are not on the CD. Michael Sembello and Sergio Mendes. And Stevie Wonder's bassist, Nathan Watts, wrote an amazing song on this album called Mozambique. It's one of my favorite Brazilian jazz funk numbers of all times. Sounds pretty much like a Stevie Wonder track from the Songs in the Key of Life era. Amazing album. Look for this. You will not regret it. The next album up is John Handy's Carnival. There's John and his saxophone. This is on Impulse. Let me show you the green, blue, and going into purple label. Very hypnotizing. Lee Ritenour, Paulo da Costa, not Paulinho da Costa is on this album, he used the name Paulo. Eddie Bongo Brown. Patty Austin's Havana Candy, which is her second album, released on CTI. There's some information about the personnel. Very similar to her first album. I still love it though. Patty Austin, from what I've heard, has never made an awful record. There's a 70 CTI label, I've already showed you that. Freddie Hubbard. I didn't have any Freddie Hubbard vinyl until this year, when this album came out. Bundle of Joy. I love how his saxophone is wrapped in some sort of red bag on the cover. It's a really cool art idea. It's on Columbia Records. One of Freddie's fusion albums. Ursula Dudziak. This album, I mentioned Ursula Dudziak before. She's a very unique vocalist in the Flora Purim vein. And this album is essentially more of the same from her on Arista. Earl Klug. His albums are always pretty easy to find around here. Finger Paintings. Great 70s Blue Note stuff. There's even some personnel listing on that album. There's Earl. Speaking of Flora Purim, here she is. Encounter. One of the last albums that I ever got from her. This album is one of those songs that, she worked a lot with George Duke, but this really sounds a lot like a George Duke kind of production. And he is on here with Leon Ndugu Chancellor and Ron Carter and Raul de Sousa, a trombone player from Brazil who I love, and Alfonso Johnson. And McCoy Tyner appears on this. Hermeto Pascal, Joe Henderson, This album, the songs on this, they start out one kind of way and then they develop into something very different. Each song does not end the way it starts. You gotta listen to them all the way through. The previews you see online do not do this album justice. You gotta listen to the whole thing. So if you can get it on CD or whatever, get it. This is on Milestone. There's some information in here. Picture of Flora. There's the 70s Milestone label. Larry Coryell and Alphonse Mouzon, within the past year, we actually lost both of these people, and that's kind of sad to think about. And this is their album Back Together Again. It always creeps me out to think of Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, you know? I mean, they keep portraying him as an egg, but he's not portrayed as an egg in the story, so you gotta wonder. But it's way off the subject. I love the cover art on the back. I always loved Alphonse Mouzon's outfits. I'd love to be that photographer right there, photographing people like this. This is on Atlantic Records. Bill Summers and Summer Heat. I actually got one of their CDs and started finding their vinyl. Of course, this guy was from the Headhunters. It's on Prestige. There's Bill playing with matches. I get the metaphor, but you shouldn't do that, Bill. There's the green Prestige label with a little blue logo. And here we are back to Sergio Mendes and the Brazil 88. But this album did not come out in 1988, folks. This album came out 10 years earlier in 1978. And I just love this cover with Sergio holding the two radios up to his ears while he's roller skating. Tiro Cruzada is my favorite jam from this album. This is on Elektra Records. Just a great album cover. Great album. Larry Coryell and Philip Catherine. Great acoustic, electric fusion kind of record. This is one of the first albums by Larry Coryell I ever heard. It's on the 70s Elektra label. Wayne Henderson, Big Daddy's Place, one of the original Crusaders on ABC Records. I'm getting into 1978 here. Earl Klug, Magic in Your Eyes from 1978. This is a gatefold album, so it opens up. Beautiful picture of Earl playing his acoustic guitar. Some information. Roland Bautista, his other album appeared in one of my other video vinyl rundowns. This is, well, he was in Earth, Wind and Fire in 1972, and then he returned a little bit later. This is his 1978 album. David Sancious, Just As I Thought. Another guy that Nigel Hall introduced me to. Wonder if Nigel's watching this somewhere. Now this is the DJ copy. Just As I Thought was of course sampled by Erykah Badu on her album New America Volume 2, Return of the Ankh. David Sancious just comes up with some beautiful ideas as far as arrangement, and really is a very creative composer, and his melodies are so musical but they get right into your head. Just As I Thought is only about a minute or so long, but you know, and he was in Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band for a short time, of all things. This is on Arista Records, 1979. Freddie Hubbard again, The Love Connection. Great album from Freddie Hubbard on Columbia. Matt Marucci, Who You Voodoo, from 1979. I didn't know anything about this guy. It's on Marco Records. It's a very plain Jane label, but great fusion album, from what I heard. Looking forward to hearing more of it. Larry Coryell, Return, Vanguard Freestyle, 1979. There's the Vanguard Freestyle label. This is from a record store called Diorcy's, from the look of it. Bill Summers and Summer Heat again. Call It What You Want. Actually, I'm sorry. We'll have to get to that one in a little bit. I put these out of order, so sorry about that little disturbance. We'll get back to Bill Summers in a little bit. Here we have Michael Gregory Jackson. I saw this cover. I didn't know who it was, but this is where 3G comes in handy. I was in the record store. I had my phone out. I turned on Google Chrome, looked this guy up. Jazz funk. Like a very, very, very jazzy Stevie Wonder, as if Stevie Wonder isn't jazzy already. Now this has a label you just gotta see. The Purple Novus label. Somebody wrote the name of the radio station on it, but there's a better view of the Novus label. Cassiopeia. I would say a Japanese American fusion band similar to Hiroshima, but they have a different and more poppy funk aesthetic, somewhere between Hiroshima and Spyro Gyra. They're on the Alpha label. And there's the Alpha label. I've never seen anything else on that label. Really cool label, actually. From 1980. I'm sorry, these records are out of order. I should have put that after this one, along with Sergio Mendes and the New Brazil 77, one of my favorite albums of all time, especially hearing it on YouTube and stuff. Paulinho da Costa, one of my favorite percussionist session people. He played with Michael Jackson, and you heard his name a little earlier. My favorite songs on here are Take It On Up, which has Bill Champlin from the Sons of Champlin, later Chicago, and Love You Till the End of Time, which is an instrumental. Philip Bailey sings on Deja Vu. Just an amazing, amazing album. There are the lyrics. There's the Pablo label. I don't think you've ever seen that before. This is my Brazilian Funk Hall of Famer album right here. Happy People. Eric Gale, Part of You. I love Eric Gale. This is from 1979 as well. On Columbia. Patty Austin, Live at the Bottom Line. She does a version of a song that I love by the Jackson 5 called Jump for Joy on this album. And she even does some country stuff. This is from CTI. Her personality really shines through. Patty Austin has such a great onstage personality. Tells some great stories before the songs and does some nice clowning and just such a great personality. Harvey Mason, The Maze, Groovin' You. 1979 on Arista. Another guy from Herbie Hancock's Headhunters. I had this on cassette, but it was all warped and didn't sound right, so I got it on a good vinyl. Hubert Laws, flautist, older brother of sax player Ronnie Laws. Family. 1980. We're getting into the 80s now. Columbia Records. Great soft fusion album, kind of like a Grover Washington record. And here we are with that Bill Summers and Summer Heat album I wanted to show you earlier. Call It What You Want from 1981. Really heavy funk on this album. On MCA Records. I don't know if this is any kind of special MCA Records, but there's something in here. An insert. Personnel, lyrics, and all that fun stuff. No special MCA label. Anyway, this was something I found about a week ago. Really exciting vinyl find. I may actually get the CD of this too. I love this artist so much. Michael Henderson, Slingshot from 1981. It's even got the hype sticker on it, with a mention, if you look at it, of one of my favorite songs on this album from Mr. Henderson, Geek You Up. Michael Henderson is a Facebook friend of mine, so hey there, Mr. Henderson. Love, love, love this album. It's on the Buddha Arista label, so I will show you that. Any Michael Henderson, I'm going to pick that up. Cassiopeia again, from 1981. I don't know if the Alpha label has changed. It has not. I just listened to this. Ramsey Lewis, 3-piece suite. I just bought this today. Just bought this today. And I love the, pun of the title. 3-piece suite, but if you take that E off, it's suit. And he's wearing a nice 3-piece suit on the cover. Regular Columbia label. This is an amazing album from Ramsey Lewis's jazz funk period. One of my favorite songs starts it right out, Lakeshore Cowboy. Actually a great jazz funk boogie thing with a little like synth tone and everything. And I love the last cut, Expansions. Great funk number. He even does kind of a mid-tempo jazz funky pop version of Michael Jackson's She's Out of My Life, which I really encourage you go hear. Donald Byrd and the 125th Street NYC. Words, Sounds, Colors, and Shapes. This is a hardcore boogie funk album by Donald Byrd. There's some trumpet, but it's mostly hardcore boogie funk. This has been reissued on CD, but I missed it the first time around. So this is like, there's some light jazz content, but this is mostly boogie. Just letting you know. Kevin Tony, Special K. This is the guy from the Blackbirds, the keyboardist from the Blackbirds. Pretty much the same story. Hardcore early 80s post-disco boogie funk. There's another variation of the Fantasy Milestone label. Actually, that's Fantasy. It's kind of a greenish tan color. We get a 12 inches here from Merry Old England, Shack Attack. Nightbirds, one of my favorite jazz funk songs. I can't find a Shack Attack album on vinyl to save my life, but great song. I love Nightbirds. Tom Coster, the keyboardist from Santana, Holding a Moog Liberation, their early keytar. The Ivory Expedition. Really hardcore, straight-ahead fusion on the Fantasy label. A blue Fantasy label this time. There's a lot of variations of them. And the late Wilton Felder, R.I.P. Wilton, Gentle Fire, 1983 on the MCA label. And there's no big deal about that. I might get into my later 80s stuff in a little bit, but for now, these 34 records represent my collection of jazz, funk, and fusion from the late 70s to the early 1980s. So I'll be back soon with another video. And until that time, enjoy your music. Peace.